Hi, welcome to the Israel First television program with myself, Martin Blackham, from our studios in Jerusalem. Great to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us today.
With your wife, Nathalie Blackham.
With my wife, Nathalie Blackham, yes. You're very welcome as well, Nathalie. And
Thank
we
you.
welcome you wherever you're watching in the world. And please let us know that you're watching. You can contact us at the YouTube contact bar, or if you're watching at a later date, you can also contact us at our email address, which is info@israelfirst.org, and also you can contact us on the website as well. Now you all know, but I'm reminding you, and for those who are maybe watching the program for the first time, we're the program that looks at Israel. We look at the news, and we have features from Israel, and we also look at the Hebraic perspective. And it's a very important role that we're playing at the moment, because we're like watchmen on the wall, Nathalie. We're seeing what's happening in Israel and we're reporting it to you. And there are some quite shocking things that are happening, and all to do with the vaccination, but we'll get onto that in a minute. The first news is what's happening with the coronavirus and the lockdown. The lockdown has finished, but Israel has said that it might impose a fourth lockdown in March. The coronavirus czar Nachman Ash warns that reopening of the economy could lead to a new lockdown later this month. Professor Nachman Ash, Israel's coronavirus czar, said in an interview with Radio 103 FM Wednesday morning that despite a recent string of government decisions to reopen some sectors of the economy, there are already signs that Israel may require yet another lockdown. So I guess that's going to be our fourth, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Ash said that the next lockdown could potentially come as early as later this month, in other words, in March, prior to Election Day, which is set for the 23rd of March 2021. Israel is going to elections in the middle of everything, in the middle of all of the things that are happening in the world. And in Israel, we're going to elections amongst all other things.
Which is soon, 23rd
The
of
23rd
March.
of March, yeah. It's possible that we'll declare an additional lockdown before the elections, said the Ash. Ash also warned that the current reopening of the economy could affect infection rates and ultimately lead to the need for a fourth lockdown.
But by the way, in America, they are saying that the lockdown are not working. So it's interesting to know from other countries, because not everybody is acting like Israel.
Now, the other big news is that Israel's, on the coronavirus side that is, Israel's COVID-19 infection rate fell to its lowest level since December. Infections rate fell below 5% for the first time since 2020, as the number of patients in serious condition fell to 717. A total of 4,265 new cases of the coronavirus were diagnosed across Israel on Tuesday this week, according to data released by the Health Ministry Wednesday morning. This marks a sharp decrease in the infection rate, with a number of newly diagnosed cases falling from 4,826. The percentage of tests coming back positive fell below 5%, and it came 4.8% Nathalie on Tuesday, down from 5.4% Monday, 5.8% Sunday. There are currently 42,733 active cases of the virus known, with 1,195 patients being treated in hospitals. Of these, 717 are in serious condition, including 224 on respirators. The number of seriously ill patients also fell to the lowest level since December, dropping from 741 on Monday and 769 on Sunday. And 19 coronavirus-related fatalities were reported Tuesday, bringing the total number in Israel to 5,797. Now, at the same time as all that's happening, and I did say we were going to talk about the vaccine, and it seems to be coming up all the time in the news, Israel's vaccine supplier, Pfizer, now recommends a third jab. At the moment, there is a first and a second, and now they're recommending a third. We believe the third dose will raise the antibody response 10 to 20-fold, Pfizer CEO Albert Bourla says. Pfizer is examining the possibility of adding a third dose to its coronavirus vaccine protocol, NBC News reported on Thursday. The company announced that a booster dose is being studied among those who received the first two doses.
And you're going to be like a pincushion.
Right. And meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says it may be necessary for all Israelis to get vaccinated twice this year, that's 2021, adding that Israel is in talks with pharmaceutical giants Pfizer and Moderna for additional mass purchases of COVID vaccines. So they're talking about having one jab, then they're talking about two, and now they're talking about 3, and then they're saying you have to have it every 6 months. And by the way, it's very interesting that the green passport, the so-called green passport, which enables you to go into shopping centres, theatres and malls, etc., for purchasing things, is only valid for 6 months, Natalie. So.
Yes. But like yesterday,
it means you have to keep having them forever, really.
And yesterday, to tell you a story that happened just with us, we had somebody that we know very well who went to work, and all of them were going to order something in McDonald's, and not all of them in the car were vaccinated, and they couldn't pick up the order. Just
because they weren't all vaccinated.
Because they were not all vaccinated.
Right.
So it's like segregation now in Israel for the one vaccinated and the one who are not vaccinated.
Yeah. So what Natalie's saying is that they went to buy lunch, I guess it was, at McDonald's, and they couldn't because they weren't all vaccinated. They weren't allowed to collect the order. Now, on that same theme, I'm going to talk about this. Israel continues to up the pressure for citizens to be vaccinated as legendary hospital Hadassah bans doctors and nurses and anybody else who is unvaccinated from treating patients. Absolutely unbelievable. Jerusalem's Hadassah Medical Center on Tuesday decreed that unvaccinated doctors, nurses, medical staff can no longer treat patients. The hospital told workers that as of Sunday, doctors and nurses who haven't had the COVID-19 shots will find themselves resigned to administrative roles or other jobs in the hospital as it sees fit. We can turn nurses and doctors into administrators and put them in other jobs around the hospital, a Hadassah spokesperson told the Times of Israel. The announcement came on the heels of a Israeli Health Ministry directive that calls for unvaccinated staff and students to be barred from working in certain departments across Israeli hospitals and in community healthcare. They include wards for people in a state of immunosuppression, including oncology, preterm infants, and bone marrow transplant patients. The Health Ministry directive also stated a new employee who refuses to be vaccinated should not be hired. So, just to kind of repeat and paraphrase it, put it into a nutshell, you can't work at Hadassah, certainly in a medical capacity if you're not vaccinated, and you can't apply for a job.
With patients.
Right.
So they can do paperwork or things like that.
Yeah, but that's not medical work.
No, I know.
You can't work and you can't apply for a job there. Now, Professor...
If you are not vaccinated.
Right.
So again, segregation between the one who have vaccine and the one who do not have vaccine.
Now, Professor Nadav Davinovich, a senior official in the Israeli Association of Public Health Physicians, said that the health ministry policy, because this is coming from government, this isn't just Hadassah, it is the health ministry is asking for this, said it's not proportionate. Also claim it could have problematic consequences. There is a shortage of healthcare workers, so this is just not practical, he said. This is one of the doctors at Hadassah saying. Now, the pressure keeps coming up in Israel with the vaccination, and now we have it on the job side, on the health side, on the work side, food side, and now on leisure side. It says that all Royal Caribbean cruises who are coming, they're starting again, the cruise ships coming back to Israel will only take vaccinated Israeli citizens. The Royal Caribbean, and if you can remember, the Royal Caribbean was the one where they had the big outbreak of COVID-19 in the past. The cruise liner, which will operate from Israel to Greece and Cyprus, will start again operations in May, but only if you've been vaccinated. If you have not been vaccinated, you will not be able to get on the ship. They'll be offering excursions from the port city of Haifa to Greece and Cyprus for those with a green passport. Tickets go on sale next week. Israel has signed agreements with Greece and Cyprus to allow, listen to this, vaccinated tourists to travel between the countries without quarantine. Masks will be required on the cruises. So if you're not vaccinated, forget your cruise. Not everyone is happy though about this. About the perks for the vaccinated and the green passport. Nurit Anderman of Haaretz News, it's a newspaper in Israel, wrote, the green passport separates the people into two groups, with one of them deemed dangerous and the other safe. It creates animosity within the culture.
Which is what they are saying. It doesn't mean that it's true. Because again, when you take the vaccine, there is consequences, because we still have to say that is experimental vaccine, and that we are still waiting for the report, which is not given right now in Israel. All the information is restrained. It's not given to us, but is given to Cypher, and so we can't really know what's happening. And usually with the vaccine, you can have immediate thing like health problems, but you can have it also much later, and maybe also on the next generation. Okay, it takes a long time usually to do a vaccine. So there is a lot of things, there is a lot of information now who are not given to us to be able to know things, and the health, our health is hijacked, because they are not giving some proper information. It's like you have to have the vaccine, and if you are not, you are segregated. So it's like we are seeing that in few weeks in Israel. Is frightening to see what's happening.
Yeah, and he goes on to say, this is Nurit Anderman of the Haaretz News, he goes on to say, the government sanctions won't be enough. In other words, people will still not want to be vaccinated. He said it will lead to bullying and harassment following those who are not taking the vaccinations in their home or work environments. Tensions are high in Israel as it is, and having a civil discussion gets harder every day, with the government putting the weight of so-called getting back to normal upon the public who have yet to have the vaccination. So it's really a big issue for Israel and across the world. So I mean,
and because we are the first. Really.
Yeah, Israel first. Like the name of the program, it's Israel first. So we are the first country to be experiencing these issues. And if you're watching today and you've had the vaccination, we're not saying that you shouldn't. What we're saying is that people should have the freedom to choose. This is always the thing. And if there is an issue with freedom to choose, then that's a very serious issue.
Now, can I say also, because I was receiving information last week, we spoke to you about a new politic group, and which is called Rafe, which means like heal, okay? And it's a doctor who was, and a bunch, obviously, of other people, but like really touching more the medical world and saying how it is important. And now I just received a report today saying that they are kind of boycott by the government, that they can't give even information about themselves, and they can't even have like press release, and so people can't know what's happening really with them. And so they are asking people like us, saying to the people, okay, you need to know what's happening here in Israel. There is the freedom of speech was taken away step by step, and this is very concerning.
And it's not just Israelis that are affected by this, there's other people. The mayor of Ariel, Nathalie, said that Arab workers won't be allowed in the city without a vaccination. Israel's health ministry on Wednesday approved the provision of coronavirus vaccines to the Palestinian Authority Arabs who are working in the Samaria city of Ariel. Ariel is famous for its university. We've done an interview about the city of Ariel, and you can look at that underneath on one of our YouTube videos. Ariel's mayor Eliyahu Shaviro said next week the vaccination booth will be set up. he promised, adding that Palestinian workers will not be allowed into the city without a vaccination. Please pay attention and be sure to inform the Arab workers who work alongside you. So they can't even, these are the Arab workers who come into Israel to work, a lot of them in the construction industry, but all sorts of industries, restaurants and shops, but they will not be allowed from, I think it was next week, I just said, they will not be allowed to come in without having the vaccination. Now, what does this all mean? You know, we're talking a lot about this, but what's the consequences? What's this all about? Now, people can't, they can't work, they can't go on cruises, they can't have, you know, they're having problems with health. There'll be problems to go into hospitals, etc. And there'll be problems to buy or sell. Like our son was going with his colleagues to buy something and couldn't. And you know, it says in Revelation 13:17, this is the King James Version, that no man might buy or sell save that he had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of the beast. Another version says it will not allow anyone to make a purchase or sell anything unless the person has the mark with the beast name or the number. And another version says it's preventing anyone from buying or selling unless he has the mark, that is the name of the beast or the number of his name. They all have to have the mark, or else they could not, Natalie, buy or sell anything. Buying or selling, it's an economic boycott against faithful believers. And this is, you know, lots of people say, well, what does that, you know, what does that whole section of the Bible mean? What does that scripture mean? We don't know everything, but goodness me, you know, it's happening in front of our eyes. You cannot buy or sell. I mean, what is the green passport in Israel? It means that you cannot buy or sell unless you have this piece of paper, unless you have been vaccinated.
Which lasts only 6 months,
right?
We have to say. And so you need, when you start to have the vaccine, it's like they're going to say to you, you need to have another one and you need to have another one. And we're not speaking about even what's happening when you have a vaccine inside of your body. You can do some research, which is getting more and more difficult because a lot of information is taken out. You need really to find out, don't go on Google, you need to go on other internet providers. But there is things who are said, Martin is putting things also on our website, and I have also a Telegram number where I put some information that I receive. And so if you want to, you have to connect with us. And this is really concerning.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very serious situation where the population is being segregated. I never heard of a population being segregated because they didn't have the flu vaccine.
Now, I want to tell you...
I mean, what kind of nonsense is that? That if somebody has the flu vaccine, they can go and buy something and they don't have flu. Nobody ever said that. I never heard anybody in my whole life, has anyone been segregated because of this? And it's a very, very serious issue.
I know. And to tell you, so I received some information of some people who are in Germany because they are very sensitive of what's happening because what's happened in their own country during the Holocaust. And they are very concerned also of what's happening here. And they are making Israelis speaking up on their program to be able to tell the people what's happening because they can't speak loud enough here. Okay, and I was watching these things, and we spoke about it, about the Code of Nuremberg. They were speaking, you know, they were giving, the big point was what we have said already, and they are very, very concerned. And like, it's so amazing, really, to see some German people who are looking at what's happening here, and who are trying to help to have more information and real information. And you know, and they were speaking also about Nazism, and like we spoke about it because people say, oh, you are really too much when you speak about that. No, there was propaganda, okay? And it's like, you couldn't find the information that you wanted, or you had really to dig yourself. You had to do some research yourself, but the main media didn't want to say the real things that was happening. And this is happening right now here in Israel.
Yeah, and this has been happening for years, that the press has been censoring things, but you know, the censorship of the press during this COVID-19 pandemic has been unprecedented. Information can be the difference between life and death if you're suffering from COVID, and protecting your own health, staying informed and keeping in contact with family and friends. From the onset of COVID-19, however, political considerations clashed with concerns about public health and free expression. Authorities across the world blocked legitimate websites, ordered the removal of unwanted content, and shut down internet services altogether.
You're right.
Officials have...
Rafe, sorry, just to say, Rafe, what we were speaking, this new political group about health, their Facebook has just been taken out.
Yeah, they're a political party, a new political party in Israel, which you won't hear much about because they are standing against the vaccination program.
And it doesn't mean that they are against vaccination,
right?
But they are against how the things is done,
right? And you know, who's heard of being forced to do these things? I mean, it's like when we had the flu jab, you know, there was a freedom. If you wanted to have the flu jab, you could. If you didn't want to, you didn't have to. But there wasn't people saying you can't buy or sell or get a job if you don't have it.
And interesting enough, Israel throwed 1.5 million flu vaccine this year because it wasn't used.
Right. Yeah. The 1.5 million doses of flu vaccination were destroyed, were thrown out. The 2021 winter has seen 0 cases of flu, Nathalie, after Israel ordered 4 million doses of flu vaccine. There was a lot of concern in the health industry that there would be not just coronavirus, but flu as well. But according to Israel Hayom, the health funds are now throwing 1.5 million doses of vaccine after no one requested them. The interest in the flu vaccine dropped when the coronavirus vaccines arrived in Israel, and due to the lack of cases. Israel's health ministry prepared for the winter, during which they were expected to be simultaneous outbreaks of both flu and coronavirus. However, data from the Israeli Center for Disease Control showed that not a single lab test was positive for flu this year. Flu has disappeared. The numbers of risk, which is very odd as well, bearing in mind that every year we had the flu problem. The numbers of respiratory infections are low, the health ministry stated. We have not yet identified flu activity among the Israeli population.
And by the way, again,
so no flu, Nathalie.
And again, it's not just here, because I read again some information today, and they were speaking exactly about the flu in America. So very interesting again. I want to again, you know how the Hebrew language is very important, and there is a lot of meaning and wisdom in all of that. There is also another story that's happening, which is like, I don't know if you heard about it, this is kind of new. Xenobot is robotic life form, okay? And again, you can do a search on that. We will put a link also when we finish to do the program, so you can just click on the link. But again, it's like man playing, God. And I was saying to Martin this morning, I had like a little sentence coming in my head. It's like, we are playing God as human when we should pray to God, okay? And we should pray to God. Very interesting also, Rofe, the name Rofe in Hebrew means doctor, but when you say Rofe, you don't see at the end of the name in Hebrew, you have a Aleph. And if you remember, we spoke about the Hebrew language. I wrote a book also that I will remind you the beauty of the Hebrew language, and is all about the meaning of the letters, and there is a lot of things to discover. And the Aleph is the first letter and represents God. And so when you see Rofe, we have to always remember, even the doctor is helping, is like we still have the doctor above us, which is our creator. And like right now, humanity is playing the creators. They are playing with life, and this is very dangerous. And I was reading a psalm today, which is Psalm 144, and it's like, you know, God loves so much the people, and he's like, what is man that you recognize him? But man is like a breath. But like right now we are so much playing God, and is very dangerous. We are creators. We are created being. Okay, we should not play creators. Now, obviously, we have to learn. It doesn't mean that we don't have to learn and find wisdom, but we have a lot of wisdom that we have lost, and now we are playing gods.
Yeah, and one of the book, if you can show them your book, I was going to talk about the next story, but let's just, if you'd like to get hold of the book, then do get in touch with us. You can see the link below on the YouTube video, and you can order the book. But if you have any problems, then do email us at info@israelfirst.org. Now, there's a lot of things happening in Israel, which is concerning, and one of them is this: there's been a Mediterranean oil spill or tar spill, and it's now being called, as of yesterday, or
yesterday,
Wednesday, it's been called terrorism, eco-terrorism by Iran. Israel says Iran intentionally polluted the Mediterranean Ocean and Israel's shores in an act of ecological terrorism, causing the greatest environmental disaster in Israel's history, Environmental Protection Minister Gila Gamliel said on Wednesday. Again, you might not know about this because the news is chaotic at the moment, and it's difficult to see what's happening, but this has happened.